Hello and welcome to Chuck's Diecast Car and Model Reviews. Today we are taking a look at this particular car. This is the Mercedes 300 SLR, probably one of the classic race cars of the mid-1950s, along with the Jaguar D-Type and perhaps the Ferrari Testarossa. This particular model is made by Maisto and is in 1/18 scale, and is honestly an excellent model. Now, for those of you who don't know much about the Mercedes 300 SLR, first of all, they made only 9 of them. Now, one of them was destroyed in a crash at Le Mans in 1955 in basically the worst motor racing accident of all time. One of these collided with another vehicle on the front straight at Le Mans, or the pit straight. The car flew into the crowd, into some grandstands, and killed 80 people, which was so traumatic for Mercedes that they actually withdrew from the race and did not race at Le Mans again for another 30 years. Okay, 2 of these remaining 6 were converted into hardtop coupes known as Uhlenhaut coupes. Uhlenhaut was the race director for Mercedes, I believe, and he used one of these as his daily driver. The second one, well, both of them were owned by their Mercedes museum, but Mercedes had 2 of them and said, well, why do we need 2 of them? We may as well sell one of them, which they did last year. And it set a world record for the value of a car. It sold for $143 million, which is more than twice as much as any other car that's ever sold that I know of. So this is a very special car. Now, the great thing for me about this Mercedes SLR is I actually got to see one. I never thought I would, and when I did, I pretty much freaked out. There's this event where I live in Colorado called the Colorado Grand, and it is an event where wealthy people drive their expensive cars around Colorado for 1,000 miles on public roads, and they get escorted by the state police, so they get to have some fun. You know, I got to talk with a gentleman who had a Ferrari 275 GTB in the race, and he said it was crazy doing 120 miles an hour behind a cop car. So anyway, I got to see one of these, and I just thought it was the most wonderful thing to see. It was just beautiful, and you know, it was just the coolest thing. The one that I saw was actually a car that had never raced. It was used as a sort of a reconnaissance car for races and a testing car and things like that. But even so, it was still fantastic. Now, regarding the specs of the car, this car, first of all, has a magnesium body, which is something you don't see too much anymore, if at all. I've only ever seen one other car that I know of which had a magnesium body, and that was a 1930s Bugatti that was actually also at the Colorado Grand a couple of years later. This thing had a 3-liter straight 6 in it, fuel injected, and it had what are known as desmodromic valves, which you only see on well, Ducati motorcycles nowadays. The valves don't have springs. They have basically rockers and cams to operate the valves, which is pretty complicated and very high tech for the day, that's for sure. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this model here. This is an excellent model. I got this model, probably 20 years ago. Probably paid $15 for it. Yet this is wonderfully detailed and an excellent model. So let's go ahead and take a look here. First of all, in profile, you gotta love the incredibly long nose. I mean, if you've got a straight 8, you gotta have a really long nose. By the way, this car is sort of a endurance racing version of the Mercedes W196 Formula One car, if you don't know what that is, but it was made to be basically, I'm sure, a much sturdier car and more reliable car than a Formula One car. So you may want to take a look at that as well, because that's a really cool looking car too, with an enormously long nose, and probably the only Formula One car that was made with fenders. So take a look at that. All right, but anyway, detailing on this car is really, really good. The paint is excellent. The wheels are plastic, but the wheels look really great as well. The knockoffs in the center look really good. You can't see the drum brakes through the wheels, but you really can't even in the real car, honestly. The number decals are excellent. And this car is actually representative of the car that won the Mille Miglia, or not the Mille Miglia, but the Targa Florio in 1955, as driven by Sterling Moss. Now, the number 104 here, notice it doesn't even fit in the roundel. But then 104 was put on the car at the race, because 104 is the start time for the car during the race. This was a timed race where there was a time interval between the start of each car, and Moss started at 104, presumably 104 p.m. Notice that this has a tonneau cover over the second seat, so Moss raced by himself. He also raced another SLR for the Mille Miglia in 1955 as well. The tonneau cover was removed, and he had a co-driver by the name of Dennis Jenkinson. And this car and this race is famous for Jenkinson basically being the first co-driver to use race notes, to provide, the upcoming corners, for Moss as he was racing, which of course they do all the time now in modern rally racing, but he was the first to do it, and therefore led to Moss, winning the race by, I believe, about an hour. So anyway, let's take a look at the front of the car here. Detail here is wonderful. I don't know if this is actual mesh in the front, but that is great. If I can't tell that it's mesh or not, then they did a really great job. So good on Maisto for that. Headlights are kind of let it down a little bit. You can see that peg there, and it's really strange because it's a long peg that goes all the way to the headlights, which is just kind of bizarre, honestly. And then of course you can see the mesh there for the intake for the engine. Okay, and speaking of engine, let's go ahead and take a look at this engine here. This is the straight 8. Take a look at that. First of all, you'll notice that of course the intake is on the side, as I mentioned, and here's all the fuel injection bits and pieces. And the reason why it's over to the side like that is because they actually slanted the engine over. I can't remember what angle they slanted the engine at, but it was tilted over in order to provide for a lower hood line for better aerodynamics. But you can see they really did a nice job of putting the detail in the engine there too. So great job by Maisto on this. It's really, really excellent. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the rear of the car here. Now, not too much to it here. I mean, this is, if you've seen a Mercedes gull wing, I mean, this is pretty much almost the same rear that you'd see at a Mercedes gull wing. But it is, again, nicely detailed. You can see the taillights look really good. The license plate looks excellent. The decal for the rear looks excellent as well. And you can see that it does have the fairing for the driver's head as well, which is removable. And I've just gone ahead and removed it and dropped it so you can see what is in the trunk. And you can see, interestingly enough, that it carries 2 spare tires. And they did a good job of texturing it to make it look like, you know, it's felt or, you know, some sort of fabric. So good for them to do that also. Finally, we get to the interior of the car. And I'll go ahead and open up the door here because that's a cool opening door. And I'll put the fairing back on there because that makes it look cooler. And you can see here that the detailing in here is great. I love the plaid seats. And I've seen a few gull wings with that plaid interior in it. And I just think it's awesome. If I were to have the money and the want to get myself a Mercedes gull wing, I would definitely get one with the plaid seats. But you can see there the shifter looks really good. You can see the handbrake even has the handle portion painted. Steering wheel looks really good. And well, the instrument cluster looks fantastic as well. And you can see in there the pedals, which look nice as well. So you know, that is my review of this very nice, very famous, historic Mercedes 300 SLR. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if so, please go ahead and like and subscribe.